Hey everybody, and welcome to a very special edition of What's Brewing. I'm your bearded barista, and we're going to go ahead and get right started to it. This is What's Brewing, our weekly hangout on air. It's 9 p.m. every Friday evening. And here with me, as usual, is the Brew Crew. So let me introduce them to you real quick. Left to right, as usual, for me, ones and zeros, Mr. Chuck Haines. How are you, Chuck?
Pretty good. Evening, all.
Evening. Right next to him is Mr. Fred Scholl, back from the dead. Fred, how are you, sir?
Doing great.
Fantastic. And then MobileCupOfJoe, our Monsignor here. How are you this evening, sir?
Doing great. It was nice being off on vacation last week, but very fun to be back hosting the show once again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we need to catch up on all that kind of stuff. And once again, my name is Alvie. I'm your bearded barista. I'm hosting this thing. So let me go over a few things before we get started. Here's how tonight is going to work. It's going to be pretty quick, and we're going to try to move just as fast as we can because there's a lot of CES coverage in Vegas this week, and I know you guys have a lot of questions, and I know you want a lot of answers, and we hopefully will bring that for you. We do have the Q&A live, so if you're watching this live currently, hey, and go ahead and hit the Q&A up. If you're watching this later or hitting us up on the podcast or just can't hit that Q&A, that's sometimes an issue for some of you guys, you can hit the hashtag, that's MCOJBrew, hashtag MCOJBrew on all those socials. We keep up with that stuff. So if you have a question or comment or concern or rebuttal about anything we're about or something that we're not, you want us to cover it for you, go ahead and hit the hashtag, hit the Q&A. Also, you can comment on the event page or the YouTube page. And if you're listening on the podcast, welcome as well. And we hope that you guys had a fantastic week. But let's go ahead and get started. Catch us up, Chuck. We'll go left to right. It's just easier for me. How was your week? What's up, bud? What was brewing?
My week was pretty good this week. We, like I said the last show, we've rolled out for Chess, the company I work for, the V3 version of our site we've been working on for, oh my gosh, it feels like forever. I think it's actually literally been like over a year now. We essentially rewrote the entire site from scratch. So we rolled it out to premium members last week, I think. But we didn't tell anyone. We just kind of let people find it. So I think more and more people are starting to find it, and so we're getting more and more. Oh, this is cool. We don't like this. You know, people always fear change. So getting some good response, some bad response, some people that just need to embrace change. You know, the usual.
The usual, yeah. On the technical side, is it working like it's supposed to?
Yes. There's a number of things that are significantly better now that we're able to go forward with this.
Excellent, fantastic. Yeah, so chess.com, go ahead and check it out. And if you're new, then it'll just look fantastic. And if you've been there before, you can see the difference. Awesome. Fred, what about you? Back from the dead, Fred, what's going on over there? What's brewing? How was your week?
Back from the dead, back from the holiday break, back in the swing of things, back to work. Tech Dissected is up and running again. I did not, and this will kind of segue into the theme of the show, I was not one of the lucky ones that made it out to CES in Las Vegas, but I've been certainly watching the blogs, watching the tweets. Some of my colleagues from Tech Dissected are out there. Cliff, Nick, Jeff, and Carissa, and it looks like tons of exciting stuff. I hope to be out there next year, but I've been covering it from here. I got a couple articles posted on some cool stuff, which we'll be talking about later in the show. Got some music things brewing as well, which are kind of in early stages, just to get off topic a little bit here, but I'm collaborating on a piece of music with a very old friend, which I'm doing remotely. He's actually relocated to Colombia, South America, and I'm going to be trying to record something remotely to contribute to that, which I'll keep you guys posted on as it goes. And, well, I'm not going to drag that along any further. Let's keep going with the tech news.
No, it's good. Yeah, you said Columbia South. I thought you were going to Carolina. You're a little far.
No, that's why I had to clarify. Actually, this is an old friend from when I lived in South Carolina, but he's in the other Columbia now.
Fantastic. Very good. Well, MobileCupOfJoe, we missed you last week, and really the past 2 weeks. And I know that you were out of town. So how was it? How was your trip? What's brewing?
Well, I will just say Anna Maria Islands in Florida is absolutely beautiful. It's kind of near Brandington, and it's just gorgeous place there. We had like sunny days, partially cloudy, 80, 70 degrees. So then I come back to Michigan this week, and we've got like, what is it? I don't know. I'm like 5'11", 5'11 and a half. There's snow up like past my knees now here in Lawrence, Michigan. We've had no school at all this week. It's pretty much been canceled every day. The wind is insane. The temperatures have been like -20 at times. So, back to reality. You get a nice little week in paradise, but then you come back and it's just like, this is Michigan. This is where you live. So, I got like kind of an extra week of winter break, which has been fun to get caught up on some reviews and stuff. I've got that have been on the back burner for a while for the channel. But it's been fun. Kind of just staying inside after going to the beach and laying out in the sun, and then come back to Michigan and staying with some MobileCupOfJoes and some hot cocoa, and just try to get through this weather right here. But it's been good, though. It's been good, and it's fun to be back on the show, fun to play with phones once again and get these videos kicked out. So definitely good to be back, and really excited to talk about all this awesome stuff that's been going on this past week at CES in Las Vegas.
Seriously, yeah, ton of stuff going on this week. Now, I didn't know Michigan ever got like snow days. I thought you guys were like well equipped for that. What's up?
Well, I mean, we usually are, but then this is just ridiculous weather here. I mean, if there's it snows overnight, it's fine, but this is like kind of Antarctic stuff we've got going on right now. So we brave out most of it, but this is just ridiculous. I was actually on IFLS, which is I F and Love Science. It's this science website, and I guess the temperatures in upper parts of the state are colder than they are in Mars right now, which is absolutely ridiculous. So, I mean, when our temperatures get lower than Mars, I think it's a safe bet to cancel school for the week. So, we try to fight out as much as we can, but there are times where you have to succumb to Mother Nature and cancel school.
Yeah,
you need a beard like Alvie for that kind of weather.
Yeah, that's what I need. I
don't get cold. I'm in shorts right now. So, but yeah, I'm down in Georgia, South Atlanta, and I mean, if they talk about snow like it's going to get cold, we're out of bread, we're out of milk, and all the schools are canceled. Just it's hilarious. If it's cold, we cancel school. Just that, no precipitation, just cold.
I'm going to call you Michigan people out. You guys are wuss. I mean, we have here in Kansas, it's just as cold, it's windier, and I swear there's at least half an inch of ice out on the road right now, and we've had school all week long. As a matter of fact, I tried to stop this morning in front of my son's school and just kind of slitted past the parking lot and just parked where I stopped. So, it's...
Well, now, do you have chains on your tires at least, or you just
no. I'm driving a little Chevy pickup rear-wheel drive vehicle that has no traction whatsoever at all anyway. So you just kind of slide into the snowbank and just kind of pull yourself back out and keep on going. So yeah, I just kind of parked wherever I slid this morning and then took my kids into the school.
That sounds like a completely safe way to get to school. Kids running around, you just slide in. So. Wow. All right, so yeah, let's go ahead and talk about CES. There's a bunch of stuff to go over. If you could look on our list, we've got over 20 topics we're going to try to blow through, but we do want to make sure we touch them and talk about them. So let's go ahead and get started. The LG G Flex 2. Chuck, what's brewing with that thing?
Well, the LG G Flex 2. So some of you guys may or may not know there actually was a G Flex 1 last year. I believe it was an exclusive to AT&T. Correct me if I'm wrong there. But it was kind of a little niche device. It's kind of like what excuse me, what Samsung is doing with their Note Edge. It's kind of that device that's a little bit out there. To just kind of try new things, try new stuff with it. The specs on it are kind of what you would expect for an upcoming flagship. It's going to run the Snapdragon 810. I believe it's going to have 3 gigs of RAM, although it looks like there might also be a 2 gig model. That's a mistake with a 64-bit processor. Believe me, I know that from having the Nexus 9. It's going to have a 5.5-inch screen. It's only 1080p, but it is the P-OLED. Which is, I don't think anyone outside of LG has actually used a P-OLED screen in a phone. I believe the original G Flex had it too, which was some of the problems with it. It's brand new technology, or relatively new technology, not tested like your traditional IPS or your AMOLEDs or those kind of things. So I think LG is kind of using this phone as kind of like their test bed. They know it's not going to sell a lot. But it's kind of for them to really kind of push their new screen technology forward. As far as the camera goes, it's basically got the exact same camera that the G3 had in it. It has all the nice features the G3 had. So it's got, the optical image stabilization, the laser focus. Battery's a 3,000 milliamp hour battery. It is running Android 5.0 with the LG UI on top of it, which I do have to say, I had the LG G3 for a while. The LG UI is nice when it was KitKat, but I think it looks awful now that's Lollipop. So I think that their UI needs kind of a little bit of a refresh for Lollipop. It, instead of having the pull down and pull down again for your quick toggles, which like for example HTC is embracing with their new version of Sense. LG isn't embracing it. It's still got the little slider across the top, which I think is a waste of space. It's a huge waste of space. If you pull down the status bar menu on any LG phone that has their new UI on it, half of that status bar is the quick toggles, the brightness, all that kind of stuff. It's a huge waste of space. So I really, really wish that LG would have kind of embraced the new Lollipop mantra and made that just even made that a double double pull down and then had that information at the top. So overall, that's the G Flex 2. It is a curved device, which I guess kind of appeals to some people. To me, I don't know. And then of course it has their what they call their self-healing technology, which I'm not super familiar with. I'm sure Fred or Joe, one of you guys can jump in and kind of explain that a little bit.
I saw it on the original G Flex. One of the members at our church has one, and it's really, that phone is really curved. Like the pictures don't do it justice. It looks like a subtle curve. It's a good bend on it. But the healing technology, you scratch it. I mean, it won't handle, if you drop it down a flight of stairs. But, basic normal scratchings, keys, and all that kind of stuff, like, it just disappears. It's really cool looking. And this is supposed to be even better than that.
Yeah, I reviewed the original LG G Flex back when it first came out, and it was definitely a really cool phone. I mean, the curve when you hold the phone, after a while, it just kind of melts with the phone, and you grow accustomed to it. But then when I went back to kind of a flat phone, and you really do miss it because that curve does lend a lot to the ergonomics, the way you hold it. But the self-healing technology on the original G3, I think it took about 3 minutes for, if there's a scratch on it, for the phone to heal itself, and it had to be in a decent temperature room with good lighting or something weird like that. At least what I remember when I reviewed the phone. But the new G Flex 2 supposedly only takes about 10 seconds after scratching it for it to heal itself. Now, when I reviewed the original G Flex, I don't know if I had a bad unit or something, but I didn't find the self-healing technology to be anything amazing or anything that really worked like it was supposed to. So hopefully the G Flex 2 does do that a bit better, but despite all the ghosting and burn-in that the original G Flex had, I really was a big fan of that phone, so crossing our fingers, we should be able to get a review unit in for the G Flex 2 when it does come out on AT&T, but personally, yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on this phone.
Yeah, it looks pretty good color-wise, too. That red looks pretty sharp.
Yes.
And speaking of a lot of phones that Joe gets to review, Blue came out with announced a few phones this week. Joe, talk a little bit about the Blue line.
Yeah, so we got to talk about Blue quite a bit here on the show for good reason, because they're a very awesome company. They've got a lot of good products if you are on a budget and looking for a solid Android smartphone. There were 7 devices that Blue actually announced at CES this year, and we're not going to run through all of them just for consideration of time and everything else we have to talk about, but there were 2 devices in Blue's lineup that really did stick out to us at this year's show. One of them is called the Vivo Air, which is part of Blue's Vivo series. Now, some of the specifications for this phone, it's got a 4.8-inch 1280 by 720p HD display, Corning Gorilla Glass 3, a 1.7 gigahertz octa-core processor, that's a MediaTek 6592, and a KitKat 4.4 Android 8-megapixel rear-facing camera and a 5-megapixel front-facing camera, 2100 milliamp hour battery, and that sounds, it's like decent mid-range specifications. But the big kicker for this phone is that it is only 5.15 millimeters thin, which is actually the thinnest phone right now you can buy in the United States, which is pretty darn impressive. And I'll go ahead and screen share a picture of this right here so our viewers that are watching can kind of see what we're talking about here. The phone does look pretty interesting. It's actually a very decent looking phone, especially for the price range. It should be, I believe, around $200 or so is what Blue said. But it's very trim looking. It actually looks like a very good looking phone. Now, the other device that Blue announced one of the other ones that Blue announced that stuck out to us the most is called the Studio Energy, which is part of Blue's Studio line. Now again, this phone, it's pretty mid-range specifications, 5-inch 1280 by 720p HD display, 1.3 gigahertz quad-core processor, 4.4 KitKat, 8 megapixel rear-facing camera, 2 megapixel front-facing camera, 1 gig of RAM, 8 gigs of internal storage. It is expandable. So again, nothing that's really exciting. But the big thing for this phone is that it has a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. Now keep in mind the Droid Turbo that came out in Verizon this past year that's had the biggest battery, or one of the biggest batteries of any phone in the market, had a 3,900 milliamp hour battery. We're talking about a 5,000 milliamp hour battery in this phone. And granted, the specifications on it may not be all that exciting, but I was actually thinking about, maybe buying this phone as kind of a backup phone if you're going on a road trip or something. For a few days, you're going to be without power, without a charger. Just carry this thing around, pop your SIM card in it. If you're just using it for light social media use, calling, texting, 5,000 milliamp hours, you can easily get through maybe 3 days of use out of that thing. So for me, again, there's 5 other devices that Blue announced, but none of them were really super exciting, just kind of updates to existing phones. But for me, that Vivo Air looks really nice, but the Studio Energy is really what grabbed my attention, because having a 5,000 milliamp hour battery on a phone, you can't talk about that and not just kind of get a little excited. Imagine how much juice you'd be able to get out of a phone like that.
Yeah, I mean, especially that's tablet battery size on a on a regular phone. It's going to last a long time. You get 8 hours or so screen on time with a tablet. You're looking 10, 12 on a phone. Especially.
Yeah, too. You're only running a 720p display, so you're really not pushing around a lot of pixels in a 5-inch canvas. So you got the potential for some really incredible battery life on that phone. So really looking forward to that one as well.
Which really, it's about time we start getting crazy battery life out of our stuff. Chuck, let's talk about the Dell Venue 8. What's going on with that? What's brewing?
Well, the Dell Venue 8 was announced at CES. I actually think it was announced on at the Intel keynote, or when Intel was actually talking on stage, and mostly because it actually has a quad-core Intel Atom CPU in it, which is not the first for an Android tablet, but it is certainly unusual. Most Android tablets these days, Qualcomm has just about the market for Android tablet and phones, although we do have the MediaTeks on some of the lower-end phones. So it's interesting to see Dell kind of go with the Intel here. I believe Dell's gone with Intels and some of their other Android tablets as well, and I think Lenovo has an Intel Android tablet as well. The most impressive thing about this, I think, it's an 8.4-inch OLED display. The resolution's 2650 by 1600, which is decent. I mean, we're certainly seeing higher resolution than that, so it's not by any means, stunning resolution. But I think what really gets the tablet itself is how thin it was. I think it was it 6 millimeters? Yeah, 6 millimeters thin. Which actually puts it as the thinnest tablet on the market. 6 millimeters is pretty impressively thin for a tablet, especially one that's running an Intel Atom processor, as opposed to a Qualcomm or something like that. But just in general, an 8.4-inch, that thin. It's got 2 gigs of RAM and 16 gigs of internal storage. On the device itself, and an 8.4-inch form factor. Kind of a nice-looking tablet. It does have front-facing speakers, which, like I said before, should be mandatory on all tablets and phones these days. Having speakers not on the front, I think these days is basically useless. Samsung or Apple. So I think
subtle, nice.
I think one of the most interesting things, besides the actual Intel Atom processor itself, and the reason this was kind of on the Intel stage, was it's actually utilizing Intel's RealSense camera technology. The tablet itself has an 8-megapixel camera, back camera, 2-megapixel front-facing camera, but it has this Intel RealSense camera in it. And what that is it actually takes depth of field information as you actually take the photos itself. So those of you guys who've maybe had a HTC M8 with its duo camera, something kind of along those lines. Although this is much more powerful because in addition to just being able to change focus, you can do things like changing color afterwards, adjusting brightness levels, doing a lot of things that, yeah, you can do with a photo these days, but when you have the depth of field information along with the photo itself, you just have a lot more control over actually editing the photo itself. I'm not entirely sure why they chose to put this in a tablet. Maybe the sensor is big. Maybe the sensor right now is still too big to fit in a phone itself, or maybe no one just wanted to bite. Maybe you have to have an Intel Atom processor, and I don't think we've seen an Intel. I'll take that back. There was a Motorola that had an Intel in it, but an Intel on the phone is extremely rare. So maybe. What's that?
ZenFone 2.
Oh, okay, the ZenFone 2. So they were dumb enough. I mean, they put an Intel chip in their phone too. So I'm not sure. I guess so. Now we're going to see a bunch of people. If they get these Dell, these big tablets. You see all these people always with their iPads up taking pictures. And you're like, really? I mean,
I love it.
Exactly.
All right, Joe, put that picture back up for me. Let me show. This is my Sony Xperia Z3 tablet compact. This is 6.5 millimeters thick, and which is really, really thin. But it holds like a normal tablet, normal phone. So the bezels on there are standard. That picture that you showed, Joe, it's got everything kind of offset, off center. The front of the phone, if you've got that, and we'll share this for the podcast guys too, so you can see what I'm talking about. Yeah, you've got a lot of bezel on the left side, which would hold with your left hand, and then not much on the right side. So this almost looks like not a tech demo, but this is kind of like Dell's Nexus line, especially with the camera that they're putting in and the way that they've designed it, which may be why they've done some of that stuff with the Intel too. Interesting though, because that looks like it's, I don't know, 10 millimeters wide there, a bezel by the time you add in the on-screen buttons and all that kind of stuff too. Interesting though, interesting. Well, you kind of led into it, both of you guys, with your ZenFone 2 and ZenFone Zoom. So, Joe, share a little bit about the new ASUS phones for us.
Well, before we go to that, I just want to point out real quick that you can actually buy that Venue 8 7000 from Best Buy right now for $399, I believe, is the starting price point. So if anyone out there wants to buy a Venue 8, you can do that from Best Buy's site right now. But yeah, going on to the ASUS ZenFone 2, this is actually probably one of the things that stuck out to me the most at CES this week. So basically, there were a couple of things ASUS announced this week, but the ZenFone 2 was one of the bigger things they announced. So some quick specifications for the phone really quick. We are looking at a 5.5-inch Full HD IPS display, which is awesome because IPS brings in, as we all know, good outdoor visibility, good brightness, great viewing angles. 3.9mm edge on the display, which gives you, 72% of screen-to-body ratio, which is something that a lot of manufacturers don't really talk about a lot of the time, how much of the front of the display is actually screen and not just the bezels and other junk like that. But in regards to some performance stuff, there is a 2.3 GHz 64-bit Intel Atom Z3 580 chipset, up to 4 gigs of RAM, which we'll get into in a little bit, 64-bit processor, ASUS's Pixel Master technology, which is a 13-megapixel rear-facing camera, along with a 5-megapixel front-facing camera. So good pixel stuff right there. Personally, I've never used ASUS's Pixel Master technology, so I can't comment too much on the quality of that. And then ASUS's ZenUI, which you get Android 5.0 Lollipop to boot with ASUS's ZenUI layered over it, which, although, it might look a bit cartoony on the surface, what's really cool is that there are different themes and stuff that you can use to change up the look of the launcher, which we've seen in different launchers from companies before. But what's very cool about ASUS's applications is that all of the ASUS applications, the ZenMotion Snap View, the launcher itself, the dialer, the gallery, the calendar, all of ASUS's applications are on the Google Play Store. So if they do want to update them, if there is a bug with the software in the application or they want to add a feature, they don't have to wait for a full over-the-air update, firmware update. They can just go ahead and update it in the Google Play Store, which is actually a really smart end on ASUS's part. And then you have a fast charging battery in there as well, and the size of the battery is a 3,000 milliamp hour unit. Now, what's really cool about the phone is that it actually comes in 3 different flavors. Now, the middle one that is kind of the base model for it, you have the 1920 by 1080p Full HD display there with 2 gigabytes of RAM, and that's going to start selling for $199 or $200 off contract, so completely unlocked. All those specifications we mentioned, if I can talk today, 2 gigs of RAM, 1080p display, $200 to go, unlocked to boot. Now there is actually a model below this that still has 2 gigs of RAM, all the same specifications, but with a 720p display. Now ASUS hasn't mentioned the price for this just yet, but we're kind of guessing maybe around $150 or so. If they can undercut the Moto G, which is currently going for $180, they really could have a good competitor for the next kind of big budget smartphone for a very low price point. That's still a relatively good looking and a decently powered phone. Now there's also a phone that's above these prior to that's still a ZenFone 2, but just kind of the leader of the pack. Same specifications, same 1080p HD display, but there are 4 gigabytes of RAM in it, 4 gigs of RAM in it, which makes it the world's first phone with 4 gigs of RAM. So I know a spec sheet Tony would be awesome to have that if he was here with us tonight. So that's actually really awesome. Again, we're not sure how much the lowest end of the ZenFone 2 is going to cost or how much the 4 gig version of the phone is going to cost. But if they can maybe get the 4 gig version around $250 or so, that still would not be a bad deal at all. Now also, ASUS also talked about the ZenFone Zoom, which is the world's thinnest 3 times optical zoom smartphone. So basically, you've got relatively similar specifications to the ZenFone 2, but the camera does have 3 times optical zoom. You've got a laser autofocus and their optical image stabilization. And this phone starts at $299, I believe, $299 or $399. I can't remember exactly what the price point is, and ASUS's website is not loading up right now. But the phone looks pretty decent. I'll go ahead and screen share this real quick so viewers can take a look at what the phone does look like if ASUS's site wanted to load. You can see right there that a 12 times zoom with the 3 times optical and then digital zoom in there as well. Very big camera sensor on the back. So if you're a shutterbug and you like taking a lot of photos, this is kind of what ASUS is hoping you're going to pick up. Personally, I think that's kind of become over a niche product, depending how much of a photographer you really want to be with your smartphone. And that's a bit more expensive as well. So personally, ZenFone 2 is what I'm really looking forward to, and crossing fingers as well we can get a review unit of that when it does come out.
I think their biggest issue there is going to be it's only a 3x optical zoom. For shutterbugs, they want more.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice to have optical finally on a mobile, but 3x, that gets you from here to the other side of the room, but not much more than that. Fred, you've been awfully quiet. We've been skipping right over it, but you've got one of my favorite announcements from CES. Talk to me about the Sling. I got my arm on the Sling. Talk to me about Sling TV. What's brewing?
All right, Sling TV. All right, well, this is further evidence for those who are not yet convinced that we're looking at the end of the cable and satellite TV industry, at least as we know it, and moving into a new phase. It's not brand new news in that regard. Back in the fall, we heard that HBO is going to be rolling out a standalone streaming web service, probably similar to HBO Go, but this time available as a standalone subscription. And now Dish Network, the satellite company, has spun off as a separate enterprise under separate management and not branded as Dish at all, what they're calling Sling TV, which is going to be their standalone subscription service. It's supposed to roll out in the spring. It's going to be about $20 a month, and the initial offering, base offering, includes 12 channels with a variety of live entertainment, including sports channels, including ESPN, which is big news to a lot of people, as well as some video-on-demand type stuff, some web video, and they're going to have some different packages. But this is going to be available basically anywhere where you can get a broadband connection. You can look at it from a web browser. You can play it over a variety of streaming devices, including Roku and so on. It will run on Android and iOS. So it's further evidence that cable TV subscriptions are not going to be necessary any longer. And it's basically another channel that's going to be out there, and it's certainly part of a growing wave of available content to get streaming independent of that wired box on top of your TV set.
Yeah, this thing is really exciting to me. Here's what I ended up doing, and I've told just about everybody I know. I kicked out my Chromecast from the house and got a Roku stick, thanks to Chuck's recommendation there, because they were one of the list of devices that this is going to roll out to first. Now, Nexus Player is, so I would doubt Chromecast doesn't get it eventually. I expect to see it there, but as far as the initial devices, Roku's there, so I went and grabbed that. This is huge because they got good channels. They got pretty much the dozen channels that most people watch. ESPN and availability. I think HGTV is in there. I don't have my list in front of me, but it's a whole bunch of good stuff. As soon as I heard about Sling TV, I instantly looked up and where can I get this? How can I get this? So this will be one of those things I think we look back and we go, man, this is where Dish really took over for that type of media without having to go through Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Instant Video, and all this kind of stuff to get the shows I want. It's just there, and I think this is a really good step in the right direction. I know some of the other guys have stuff to add in too.
HGTV is in it. Cartoon Network, Disney Channel, 2 SPN channels, TNT, TBS, Food Network, and they are, without too many specifics, they are saying that there are going to be some additional packages at $10 a piece, like kids programming, etc. There'll be room for expansion on this thing, and I think the main point here on this is that it's really it's hardware independent, or at least hardware agnostic. You don't need a particular device for it. You don't need a dongle on your TV set. It'll basically work with whatever you've got. It'll work on your web browser on a PC or Mac. It'll work on your phone if you've got an Android or an iOS phone, and it will work on a variety of other devices that people may already have, like Roku and so on.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I know we need to move on, but hashtag bring on the Sling for me.
Well, one thing before we do move on, so I was talking to Aaron Traffis about this, who you guys has been on the show a few times, and he was a little bit he was happy about it, but also disappointed because it's still not the a la carte option that a lot of people are looking for, and you're still basically being forced to have some channels that you might not care about, which he does have a good point there. It's not the a la carte option that everyone's looking at, but me personally, I'm happy. I'd pay exactly what I pay for cable right now if I could get all those channels not on cable but any device that I wanted. For me, price, I don't really care. I just don't want to be tied to a TV.
Yeah,
that's true too. But it is a step in the right. It is a step in the right direction. And $20 a month is better than the $100 a month that a lot of people are paying.
And that's not $20 for the first 8 months on contract, and then it blows up for the next half, like a lot of guys are doing.
Right, and it's no contract, also no obligation. You don't have to sign up for a year or 2 years. It's $20. If you want to turn it on, it's $20 on the day you turn it on. You want to turn it off the next month, you can do that.
I'd just like to say that as I'll be able to get my House Hunters International and Shop and Food Network and HGTV, so I'm signing me up. Take my money right now. I'm good to go.
Man, you Michigan people, not only are you wusses, the guys that watch HGTV, come on, Joe, what's wrong with you up there?
Just getting Michigan's just getting shots fired on them tonight by Chuck Haines.
Well, apparently Michigan's not. That's why you like the international. It's just so bad it's ruined the states for you, and you're ready to lose. All right. Moving on. Chuck, talk to us about the new Sony smartwatch.
All right. Well, the new Sony smartwatch. Well, it's not really completely new. It's the Sony Smartwatch 3, which has been out for a while, but the company kind of reintroduced it with an all-metal design. It's a stainless steel design. It's still kind of it's still the original Sony Smartwatch 3, so it's still the same 1.6-inch. 320 by 320 display, water-resistant micro USB charger. So it's got all the same specs as the original one, But the only difference is it looks kind of a lot nicer in my opinion. You know, I'm a big fan of stainless steel watches. You know, I know a lot of people, Tony, and Alvie, I think that you have with your Zen watch as well, gotten kind of the metal links for their watches, which in my opinion just makes the watch look all that much better rather than some of these more cheap bands that they're putting on it. So it's a really slick looking watch. You know, it's I would venture to say probably the best looking smartwatch I've seen out on the market. Now it is square or rectangular, so it's not circular. The original Sony Smartwatch 3 wasn't either, but in case anyone was kind of hoping for that. You can't actually buy it yet. It hits the market early 2015. But it certainly you know, I think is a step in the right direction. It's as Tony likes to say, it's a smartwatch that doesn't look like a computer sitting on your wrist.
Right.
So you know, some were to look at that watch to go, hey, that's a really nice looking watch. So I think you know, this is kind of the moving in the right direction with smartwatches not looking like you know, old Poindexter, you know, putting our glasses up on our nose. Yeah.
Don't look like you're from Michigan, right?
You say computers on your wrist like it's a bad thing, Chuck.
Well, you know, I don't care. I mean, I've still got the original Gear Live, and I'm quite happy with it. But I know some people it matters. So.
No,
Did you say that was the Chuck? Did you say that's the best looking smartwatch on the market?
Yes, I think it actually is.
I beg to differ. I think the Moto 360 is still the best looking. Your days of use of the Gear Live are kind of mudding your idea of what a good smartwatch looks like.
I would put the Moto 360 like
Michigan fires back.
It's that cold air. It's getting to Joe's head. He can't think straight anymore.
I'll see you guys later. Good night.
Right. No, you're hosting. It'll kill everybody if you. And I would argue with that. Say the ASUS ZenWatch is the best looking. But moving right along, let's talk a smartwatch again. Joe or Chuck, either one of you guys, whoever wants to jump in on this. This will be quick. LG and Audi's webOS smartwatch. There's not a lot of information on this, but catch everybody up.
Yeah, so this actually wasn't really a product that was a big point of focus. It was actually Audi's kind of event. They were showing off for their car, their new Android Wear application, their application for this watch, where you can kind of make some controls on the car. You can start the car from your phone and different controls like that, right from the watch, rather. But this smartwatch that was made by LG, I believe we were talking earlier, I think it was Android Central who went out on the scene, and they looked on this LG watch, and they actually found it was running webOS. So essentially the watch looks a lot like a LG G Watch R, but kind of a slightly different design with some more stainless steel thrown in there. But the watch is running webOS. It's got a kind of a circular interface with icons and stuff. It runs very smooth. It looks beautiful. I'm a huge fan of webOS. I ran it on my Palm Pre back in the day, so date that however far back you want to go. But I'm a huge fan of webOS as the platform and the operating system. So I'm really excited to see it here on this mystery LG smartwatch. We saw it on LG's TVs, and now we're seeing webOS return once again on this mysterious smartwatch. Now, there's really no confirmed release date. I think it was the Wall Street Journal reported that we might see this thing sometime in 2016, but again, we're really not sure if this is actually going to come to market or if it's just kind of a test device for Audi with their new mobile app for the smartwatch. So either way, it looks like a really nice watch, and anything that's running webOS, I'm kind of ready to give my money to right now. So definitely exciting, but still a lot of stuff we don't know quite yet about the smartwatch.
Yeah, because they haven't said anything about it, had any information given. It's just what everybody else has gathered by looking at this thing, right?
Yeah, I
pretty
think
much.
so, and they kind of denied it. It seems that one of the guys there kind of denied that it was running webOS, but they've got screen captures of a settings screen on the phone, which I don't know if we can get in the showcase or not, but it does say it's running webOS. So it's there. It's nice.
We'll share those.
I'm a fan as well. I watched Palm get bought by HP, and I was waiting for the next iteration of devices to come out. I did get a touchpad when they got discontinued and went on fire sale, which I've still got. There's no new development for it really, but it's a cool OS that, as I say, could have been a contender.
Yeah,
Was there actually
It's nice to see that somebody's kept it alive.
Yeah, and TLC, who actually kicks out the Alcatel One Touch devices, they purchased the Palm brand name. Like, they didn't purchase any part of webOS since LG still owns it, obviously. They just bought the Palm name, so I don't know if that still carries any relevance in today's market at all, but talking about webOS, yeah, the TLC, the company that makes the Alcatel One Touch devices, they now own the Palm brand, so I don't know why they bought it. Apparently thought it was a good deal, but, I mean, I don't know if we're going to see anything come out of that, but
I can't imagine that would carry any weight. If anything, it'd almost be like a negative connotation along with it.
You think BlackBerry is a small fan base? Just think how much smaller Palm is.
Yeah, woo, Palm.
Palm 1, baby.
Hey, when I got my Palm Treo 700p, it was the best device on the market at the time, hands down.
Yeah, I was upset that I didn't get Fred your touchpad when it went on sale. Like, I was at work, and by the time I got home, they were sold out. So
it was tough. It took 2 or 3 days of checking the sites, but I did pick up a couple of them, one for me and one for my wife, which has been passed on to the boys. I still use mine for sheet music, which I take out on the road with me sometime. There's not a lot of new apps, but just to read PDF files and such. Yeah. It's a nice, big, fat 11-inch screen, I think, and my boys have used it to read some I think comics and magazines and so on, which it's still a beautiful, nice resolution screen.
Yeah, it's not. It's still. It's got its place. Let's say that. Joe, tell me about this Razer. Man, I'm struggling. Razer Forge TV. What's brewing with that?
Well, Android TV is still kind of in its infancy still. The only device running Android TV as a set-top box anyways is the ASUS Nexus Player. Well, Razer came out and we don't really talk about gaming a whole lot on this channel. Razer is kind of famous for their gaming PCs and gaming accessories, keyboards, mice, all that kind of stuff. But they actually announced an Android TV set-top box at CES, and for our watchers of the show, I'll go ahead and share what this thing looks like. It actually looks like a kind of decent-looking set-top box. It's kind of funky. It's got kind of a green underglow below it and the famous Razer logo above it for anyone that does know the kind of PC gaming market. But this is basically just running Android TV. So you've got the general interface for Android TV like we saw in the Nexus Player. It's got gigabit Ethernet port on there for high-speed connections, wireless AC, and a quad-core processor in it. So you've got really good specifications in there. While it is an Android TV, you can get Netflix and all that good stuff on there. It's got a big focus on gaming with it, which is kind of the market this is going towards. So yes, you've got Netflix and Hulu Plus, HBO Go, all that good stuff, Google Play Movies and TV shows. But the big focus on here is gaming. You got local multiplayer gaming up to 4 controllers at once for the Forge, or for the Razer Forge TV, that is. Now, me being a PC gamer myself, one of the things that I'm actually most excited for is the Razer Cortex Stream, which actually allows you to stream your PC games to your Razer Forge TV set-top box. Now, it'll adjust the resolution and such of the game based off of your current internet connection. And along with this, they've also got accessories, the Razer Turret, which is a living room-focused mouse and keyboard setup with kind of a mouse pad right there on the keyboard for your mouse. So personally, again, me being kind of more of a gamer, really awesome to see an Android TV set-top box with this inclusion of being able to stream your PC games right to your TV. And then just have an Android TV on itself right there too. This is shaping up to be a pretty awesome set-top box. I don't think Razer has announced any details on pricing just yet, but if we can see this thing get there around $199 like the Nexus Player is $199, correct?
99.
99, I mean, sorry. So yeah, if we can see this thing get out there for around $100, this could be a very, very compelling Android TV set-top box, especially for those of you kind of looking for some moderate gaming on the side with your streaming wants and needs on there.
Yeah, because that's some of the issue with PC gaming. You got to have like a rig to run it, so something like this would be like fantastic.
Yeah,
For those
definitely.
not wanting to make the huge investment, but they still want to play some PC games. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so like I said, me being kind of in that market for the gaming like that, I'm really excited for this thing. And it looks kind of cool too, kind of retro-y and techy and cool. So definitely kind of a fun product to keep your eye out for this year.
Absolutely. All right, Fred, back to you. Let's talk about this thing that kind of came out of nowhere for me. I was not expecting this one. The Intel Compute Stick, if I'm saying that
Compute
right.
Stick is a nifty little device that was apparently shown out there at CES. It looks like a streaming stick device, like a Roku or a Chromecast. Apparently, it's a little bit bigger. It's about 4 inches, and I don't have a photo of it in somebody's hand, but it's like the size of a pack of gum, maybe a little bigger than the other sticks. It plugs into HDMI port on your television. It will do the stuff that the streaming devices do, but more importantly, it's got an Intel CPU in it, and it will run Linux or Windows, which is not incredibly radical, but it's a nice little portable device which will let you run probably not super high-end, super high resource hog type programs, but you'll be able to take Windows programs with you. You'll be able to take Linux programs with you and plug them in wherever you go. And it's basically adding to the intelligence of televisions in a way that's not being done by the other devices right now.
You think that's aimed kind of
as far as
Chromecast market?
Difficult to say who they're aiming it at. It's kind of in the early stages. There's a couple of months before it actually rolls out, but it looks like there's a couple of target audiences for consumers. They're looking at it as a low-priced, I guess not necessarily entry-level device, but a kind of a low-entry device. Probably not for heavy video editing, probably not for heavy gaming, but for relatively lightweight productivity programs, for lightweight social networking, maybe some gaming, not really sure what you'll be able to do with the resources that this has got. They're also talking about its uses as for thin client solutions for businesses, probably small to medium-sized businesses, so that people can load up programs with them to take on the road. Obviously, storage. And another, I think, kind of interesting application is that they're suggesting thin client solutions for things like digital kiosks, where you could have a kiosk set up, come and just plug in one of these sticks that has either digital image display or a video display that somebody wants to show, or whatever it is that they want it to do on the kiosk, depending on what kind of a kiosk it is. As far as specs on this thing, it comes in 2 flavors, the Windows flavor and the Linux flavor. The Windows one, as you might expect, Windows being a little more of a resource hog, comes with a little more resources. It starts with 2 gigabytes of RAM and 32 gigabytes of storage, which is flash storage, of course, and it'll come loaded with Windows 8.1. The Linux flavor is scaled down. It's got 1 gigabyte of RAM only and 8 gigabytes of storage, but it's got a lower price tag as well. That's it's $149 is going to be the price, and Intel is going to be selling this on their own, which is kind of a new twist also. But the Windows version is going to be $149. The Linux one is only $89. I'm a little bit concerned about the price differential here, because they've only dropped 1 gig of RAM. And yeah, it's a quarter of the flash storage, but flash storage is awfully cheap. You can get a 32 gigabyte flash stick for, oh, I don't know, maybe $10 or so these days in the right place. That's a big price differential. It's not running Windows, of course. It's going to be running probably Ubuntu, which is free, but apparently the Windows version runs the Windows Bing version, which is put out for free so that OEMs can use it in embedded solutions. So that's it's a big price jump there from one to the other, but still in all, it's a low-priced, small device. I was starting to call it a tiny device, but we've got something else coming up from Intel, which is much tinier than this one, so I can't say that any longer. But still, it's a really interesting device. It's a couple of steps up from Raspberry Pi, which we saw over the last couple of years as a small, complete computer solution. And it'll be interesting to see what people do with this thing once it hits the street.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that we're covering, especially this thing here, almost has like a casual audience feel, which is why I asked you about the Chromebook audience, which is typically a casual computer viewed that way. So just kind of interesting to see what they do with the stuff that goes into your TV and putting it more into your living room.
Well, I think the Windows Bing version, isn't that kind of a direct competitor to Chrome OS?
I'm not really entirely up on how they're marketing it, but my understanding is that it's put out there as a free version of Windows based on the fact that it's got to come with Bing as the default search engine. It still can be turned off in settings, but it's Windows for free, and it's not going to fit in tonight's show with CES, but interesting discussion in some of the tech news last week was talking about pricing for the upcoming version of Windows, and there is actually some discussion that they may be talking about Windows 10 as being a free upgrade for everyone who owns any version of Windows. I don't think it's going to go that route, but I think that would be a brilliant move for Microsoft. But we can maybe get to that one next week.
Yeah, good topic for another show. So Chuck, talk to me about taking pictures with this new smartphone. Kodak's back in the game, right?
Yeah, supposedly. So Kodak has a new smartphone they've announced, their IM5. As far as specs go, it's on the low end. It's a 1.7 gigahertz MediaTek processor. It's a 5-inch display, 1280 by 720 pixel IPS. Weighs 4.23 ounces, so it is kind of light. It runs Android 4.4 KitKat, but it does have a skin over top of it.
Sorry, I said that.
Well, the skin over top of it kind of looks like it's something that my grandmother would use. So it's no offense, Fred.
Jitterbug.
But it's very sorry. It's very big buttoned. And I think actually I saw some reports on it. Kodak, actually, that's exactly who Kodak is actually marketing this to. It's a lower spec device. I suspect, I think they said it's going to cost $249 unlocked when it eventually makes its way to the U.S., which for such a low-end phone is kind of expensive. Me personally, I'd rather go with a Moto G, which is actually a better processor in the Snapdragon. What's it, a 200 in there, I think? 2 or 400. And of course, you get stock Android. You don't get the kind of overlay on top of it. The big focus is supposed to be the camera in this thing. I believe it has it's an 13 megapixel rear sensor and a 5 megapixel front-facing camera. There's not a whole lot of specifics out on like what the camera is. Is it something special Kodak did? Is it just a standard sensor we'd find in a different phone? There were some sites that had some reports on taking pictures, and they said that, honestly the pictures weren't all that impressive. Certainly a lot worse than you might get with an iPhone or a Nexus 6 or Note 4, which are kind of probably the top 3 smartphone cameras out on the market right now. The G3 is another one that's out there. It's really good. So it just kind of seems to be a cheap device targeted at maybe people who want a phone with a decent camera that's a little bit easier to use. Older folks or less technical folks, is kind of where it's marketed at. But I think at $249, it's just too expensive.
Yeah, for half that price, you can get something really decent and put a different launcher on there that looks a little more user-friendly and get out of it just fine.
Right, which is actually exactly what I did for my father and mother-in-law. I got them the Moto E, which works pretty well for them on Republic Wireless, and I just put a very dead simple launcher on there that makes it a lot easier for them. So, I don't know that I could actually recommend this phone to anyone. I think there's a lot better options out there for cheaper. The Moto E is $99. The Moto G is $179. We heard about a couple blue phones that are just out, which I think are certainly better. And at the lower end of the devices, you really want stock Android. You don't want any kind of skin on them.
Well, yeah, I mean, if it's got low specs, you start throwing skins, and it's just going to lag and they're not going to enjoy the experience at all. Joe, we've got some interesting Lenovo smartphones. Tell us about the P90 and the Vibe X2.
Yeah, so it's always kind of fun to talk about Lenovo phones just because we really don't see them in the States at all, or at least in the West really at all. So it's cool to see these types of phones at CES, kind of see people get their hands on phones that we're not going to be able to test out later on in the year. But one of them, there's actually a couple phones that Lenovo announced. One of them is the Lenovo 64-bit P90 and the Vibe X2 Pro. So the P90 is the first phone on the market that's running Intel's 64-bit Intel Atom Z3560 processor. That's a 1.8 gigahertz quad-core chipset, 5.5-inch IPS display, 1920 by 1080p, full HD resolution. You've got 2 gigs of RAM, 32 gigabytes of onboard storage, a 4,000 milliamp hour battery, which although it's not as monstrous as the 5,000 milliamp hour unit in the Blue Studio Energy, that's still a pretty hefty battery size there, and should be a pretty good phone for getting you through long days of use where you are without a charger. We've got a 13 megapixel rear-facing camera with optical image stabilization and a 5 megapixel front-facing camera, LTE connectivity, 8.5 millimeters thin. Comes in a pearl white, a lava red, and a black color. And there's actually a cool thing with the second phone they announced, the Vibe X2 Pro. What's cool about this phone is that it actually has kind of a layered design with it. So essentially, if you look on the frame of the phone, you've got a strip of red, then a strip of white, and then a strip of blue. So you've got kind of 3 layers of color with the design of the phone. And granted, the specifications are a bit lower. A 5.3-inch 1080p display, 1.5 gigahertz Snapdragon octa-core 615 processor, 2410 milliamp hour battery. So again, kind of lower end specs for the phone. But if you look at pictures for the overall design of it, it's a very gorgeous looking phone. It's something I'd actually like to see more manufacturers here in this side of the country try out with this layered design for it. But what's actually really cool is that you do have a 13 megapixel rear-facing camera, but you also have a 13 megapixel front-facing camera. And with the Vibe X2 Pro, you can actually get a flash accessory to put in the top of the phone to give yourself a flash for your selfies. And then you also have gesture and beautification tools. So for all of us here that are very big selfie takers, we've got all of our tools, whatnot, to capture beautiful selfies, which is apparently a trend that's really big in the mobile market right now. A lot of these companies are making selfie phones, which I'm sure they're making some money off of, but I would really not be sad if this trend just died right now because it's kind of irritating. We've got real issues. Like, what about battery life, focusing on making our phones last longer? I don't give a crap if I can take a gorgeous-looking selfie. Just make my phone last a long time. We'll worry about the selfies later on. But if that's your thing, Lenovo's got you covered for that. No word on pricing right now, and these are most likely not going to be available in this side of the country. But if you're into your selfies, I guess you can find a way to ship it over here in the U.S. if you need your selfie flash with your phone. Lenovo's got you covered.
Well, hey, high-end specs and so on, cell phones to people like us, and maybe to a lot of the people who are watching or listening to this podcast. But for the public at large, at least in 2014-15, ease of getting into selfie mode is probably a big selling point.
Does it come with a free
Yeah.
selfie stick? That's what I
Thank
want to
you.
know.
Yes.
Did you guys see that? Did you guys see the Belfie stick at all there at CES?
Yes.
Yeah, the selfie for taking pictures of your booty, apparently.
Oh.
These are things that are at CES. These are all the things that all this technology we have at our hands that we can construct great tech tools with. We're making selfie sticks and Belfie sticks and selfie
I don't see that over
flashes.
here on our list. We're not going to cover that?
I'm gonna do a full review on it. So be looking for that on MobileCupOfJoe. Oh man, let's move on before we actually get too far into this. Where are we? You made me lose my place. Oh, Chuck, your favorite. I know you're a big fan of Samsung. Talk about the A5 and A3 smartphone, buddy.
So the A5 and A3. So the A5 and A3 is a lower end phone for Samsung. Of which they have 1 billion phones out. The thing that kind of differentiates the A5 and the A3 from the rest of the Samsung phones is they're a metal-clad body. So they're actually a nice phone, even though they're a very low-end phone. I don't claim to understand why Samsung would do a metal clad on here and not like their flagship
Right.
Galaxy S series, but who knows, whatever. The Galaxy A3 is a 4.5-inch lower Q HD Super AMOLED. So for those of you keeping score, that's a 960 by 540 resolution. It's powered by a 1.2 gigahertz quad-core processor. I'm not sure actually what processor's in it. I'm imagining probably either a Qualcomm or maybe one of the old Xenos processors from Samsung. It's got a gig of RAM, 16 gigs internal storage. Of course, it does have the external micro SD slot. It's got a 1900 milliamp hour battery, 8 megapixel rear camera with a flash, which actually is kind of unusual for lower end phones. A lot of times when you get to the low end phones, you don't have a flash, you just have the camera. So that is kind of nice. It has a 5 megapixel front shooter, so you can get that nice selfie with your selfie stick there. And it does run Android 4.4 with the god-awful TouchWiz on top of it. So it should run like an absolute drag of a phone with TouchWiz with those low specs. And then, of course, you also have the A5, which is a slightly bigger version. It's a 5-inch, 1280 by 720p resolution. That actually has a 1.2 gigahertz quad-core processor in it as well. That is the Qualcomm Snapdragon 410. It has 2 gigs of RAM, 16 gigs of internal storage, 2300 milliamp hour battery, 13 megapixel rear camera, 5 megapixel front camera, and of course, like every other Samsung phone, runs their TouchWiz UI. So overall, you got kind of 2 lower end phones. I don't actually have the pricing on the phones. I think they're coming in on the lower end, and I think that they're really targeted towards the India market over there. I know that there is a very large market in India for cheaper phones. That's kind of where the Moto G first came, the Moto E. So we probably won't ever see this stateside. It's probably more for the market over there, where there's much more of a demand for these kind of phones than necessarily there is over here. So all metal clad, which is kind of interesting. Maybe Samsung's kind of toying with the idea to bring it to their more flagships, or maybe Samsung just said, hey, we've already got 10 phones that look exactly like this. How can we make this one different? Oh, let's put it in a metal body. I don't know. It looks interesting. Probably nothing that we'll ever see here stateside, nor nothing that I would ever suggest to anyone probably to buy anyway.
Well, it almost has like a Sony Z2, Z3 look to it. That
It
metal
does,
body,
actually.
that square look. So maybe that's the market they're going after. But yeah, I mean, there's a million phones from Samsung, so take your pick, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's get back on another wearable real quick. Joe, talk about this Alcatel. I never can say that right. The One Touch watch.
Yeah, so Alcatel went ahead, and this is actually, I think, the first day, maybe day 0 of CES this year. They announced the Alcatel One Touch watch. So this is actually kind of an interesting device we've got here. It is a circular watch, but you do have an even bigger flat tire than the one here on the Moto 360. But actually, that acts as kind of navigation for the watch. So actually, on the flat tire, you can go ahead and press it, and there's actually kind of a home button there, which is kind of an interesting way to take advantage of light sensors and stuff on a circular display. But nonetheless, go ahead and screen share a quick image of the watch so you can just kind of get a better idea for how the thing does look. Alcatel One Touch is really not super big here in the States. They've got some lower-end phones on different kind of prepaid carriers. But just looking at the watch, it actually doesn't look terrible. Granted, it's not the sexiest thing out there, but the circular display does still look fairly nice, although these pictures don't show off that flat tire all that well. But one of the most interesting things about this watch, though, is actually the way that it handles charging. Because actually in the watch band itself, there is a full-sized USB 3.0 charger right there. So you don't have to have that annoying little cradle like the Samsung Gear Live that Chuck only knows too well about with his. So just having that right there to maybe plug into an AC adapter or even in your computer or something like that is a very interesting way to go about it, and is something we really haven't seen from any other wearable to date. What's also cool about this watch is that it'll be compatible on both Android and iOS devices, any Android phone or tablet running 4.3 Jelly Bean or higher, and any iOS device running iOS 7 or higher. So it doesn't look too bad. I believe the price point is going to be about $150. So especially compared to something like the Moto G, which is definitely a much better smartwatch in pretty much all use cases from what we've been able to tell so far. This is $249, so $100 less for a circular display. You look at the Pebble and the Pebble Steel; it's kind of competing more in line with the price range of those devices. So having a circular display at a more accessible price point is something that may work here, especially with that compatibility across iOS and Android devices. Now, because of that, you're obviously not running Android Wear on here. This is Alcatel's own user interface, which from what we've seen so far could use a bit of work. It's got that kind of flat, minimalistic design going on, but there are some things that definitely need some work on there. But you still have an accelerometer, heart rate monitor, all that good stuff. So this is another watch for iOS users until the Apple Watch comes out. Maybe that's going to hold you over if for some reason you're holding out for an Apple Watch. But this is an interesting device out there. Circular display, $150. It could be good. It could not be. I'm kind of too early to make any judgments right now. But after using Android Wear, I'm not super sold on something that's not running that as its operating system. So what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Well, the battery life is supposed to be like days long, right? On that one, isn't that the one that has like a really long battery life?
I am actually not sure about that. I didn't hear anything about the One Touch being that great about its stamina. Let me check that.
And that may be something else. I mean, so much stuff came out this week.
Yeah, I don't think so, because this only has a 210 milliamp hour battery.
Okay.
So.
But because I'm thinking the difficulty in charging this thing, that's stupid to hang it off of your wall if you put it on a wall adapter. So you're looking at this, or plug it into your computer, which is terribly convenient for all these people that don't have computers anymore. So that's a big thumbs down for me. But you guys go ahead and get it with your Samsung and all that kind of stuff.
Hey, I'm waiting for my Apple Watch, man. That's
I know
yeah, buddy.
725 pictures on that, man. I can't
Hey,
wait.
no, I'm looking. I'm waiting. I'm gonna send my heartbeat to someone. I'm looking at you.
Tappa.
Yeah, buddy.
If you could send the Tappa and then follow it up with a Belfie right straight to your best friend, you're in business there. Doug, while you're making fun of everybody else, talk to me about this Jide remix. What's brewing with it?
All right, Jide remix. I actually think this, other than maybe the Sling TV, was one of the most exciting things I saw. So the Jide remix, it's actually made by a trio of former Google employees. And basically what they've done here is almost made, for lack of a better way of putting it, a Surface clone. The Microsoft Surface, I have to admit, is a pretty awesome product. I don't own one, but I've used a number of them in Best Buy, and I've had some friends who have had them. And the Surface is just pretty awesome for something. It's from Microsoft, which has kind of always been befuddling, but it's awesome. So what these guys have done is they've basically taken the idea of the Surface, and instead of it being a Microsoft product, it runs Android 4.4.2, but it's not stock Android. The software that actually runs on this tablet is called the Remix OS. So going back to the tablet itself, it's basically a tablet. It has a magnetic dock keyboard literally, it looks. You could put it next to a Surface, and you probably couldn't tell the two of them apart. The tablet itself has kind of the kickstand on the back of it, just like the Surface does. It's an 11.6-inch tablet, 1920 by 1080 screen, a 1.8 gigahertz NVIDIA Tegra 4. Which is a little bit interesting choice now that we've got NVIDIA coming out with their newer chipsets. Not entirely sure why they're going with the Tegra 4. Maybe this has just been in development for that long. 2 gigs of RAM, 5 megapixel selfie camera, also 5 megapixel on the back there. Of course, it's got the normal Wi-Fi, but kind of the kicker is an 8100 milliamp hour battery, which is pretty insane for a tablet. That's a lot of juice on a tablet. I don't think it actually says how thick it is. It does kind of look a little bit thick from the pictures here. But one of the most interesting things about this, in addition to running Android, because Android itself is nice, but Android's not necessarily a true app tasking environment. We've had the Transformer series and a number of other series have kind of tried to do it. So this OS, while it's running Android underneath of it, if you were to look at it, you'd probably go, "Oh my goodness, that's Windows," because it's got a taskbar at the bottom. It looks exactly kind of like a Windows taskbar. You can actually run multiple apps at the same time and kind of window them together, and so you can have multiple apps going on at the same time. Much like Windows, it looks shockingly Metro-ish. If you look at like the stock email client, it's there. So it looks like they're kind of trying to take Windows and Android, mash them together, and kind of come up with this tablet. It looks really, really cool. I'm kind of interested to see kind of what the final product is here. It's going to go on sale in China first. It's eventually coming to the U.S. and the U.K. Second or third quarter of this year, which means by that time the Tegra 4 will be absolutely obsolete. So for those of you spec people, it may not even be worth it. But it's going to cost $449 for the 64 gig model and $349 for the 16 gig unit, with a bunch of different colors. I can get my nice hot pink. Should look awesome sitting up here. So overall, I'm kind of excited. Although unfortunately, like a lot of things that come out of CES, you hear them at CES, but then you don't actually get them. Until August or July or whatever it was. So I hope that they can come out before then. I think by then the processor and the specs are just going to be too last year for most people to be interested in it.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it was running Android, because I was just scrolling through the article and just look at the screenshot for that email client, and it looks identical to Windows. So I don't know. That's an interesting approach they're taking to Android. That'll be really interesting to see how that pans out and how that turns out for them. If that was a smart move on their end, or if it just kind of syncs. So that'll be definitely a different thing to run Android and have it look like Windows. It'd be a very unique way to operate a tablet like that with Android.
Yeah, I think so. Definitely one of those things to keep your eye out for, though, for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, Fred, let's talk a little bit about Panasonic's Lumix. What's going on with that? What's brewing?
Okay, Lumix CM1. So, again, I wasn't out there. I have not seen this, but a lot of people did see it and handle it, so I'm working on secondhand info here. But the question seems to be, is it a phone or is it a camera? It's got both. Obviously, well, as phones all do now. Being that Panasonic is using the Lumix name, it seems pretty clear that they want us to think of it as a camera that happens to also have a phone built into it, and it is a very high-end camera. The phone itself is nothing to get super excited about. It's as a phone screen, it's 4.7 inches. 1920 by 1080 resolution. It's currently running Android KitKat 4.4.2. It has a Snapdragon 801 processor. So I would say it's a good phone for 2014. But it's when you go a little bit further that you start to see things getting kind of interesting. It expands, let's see, it's got 2 gigabytes of RAM, 16 gigabytes of storage, but you can expand it with micro SD up to 128 gigabytes, which is going to be of value when you start using this thing to take a lot of high-resolution photographs and video. And when you flip this thing over to the other side, which is really looks more like the front of the device, you've got a really nice camera with a Leica, lens, and 20 megapixel camera, 4992 by 3744 pixels. Video shoots at 2160p at 15 frames per second or 1080p at 30 frames per second. And everything about this makes it look like it's a camera that just happens to have a phone on it. People who looked at it seem to be describing it as something where you can take a picture, flip it over, and then look at the screen that's hidden behind the camera, and then use it to email, share, upload your photos and videos to social networking, and so on. For a camera buff that wants something they can take out with them, have connectivity on it, do something with your photos as soon as they take them, it seems like a cool device. Downside on this thing that I can see really is the price, because it looks like they're talking about a $1,000 price ticket. So it's really coming in at a bad price point for the mobile market, I think. But will camera buffs go for it? I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, until you want price, yeah.
Yeah, if it takes really good-looking photos, then I mean that's not terrible if you're talking like professional cameras, but that's all going to depend on how good those photos actually turn out looking.
How much is the Galaxy camera? Because that's, I mean, obviously its closest competitor here.
I think that's
$499?
quite a bit cheaper, yeah.
Yeah.
How much?
I want to say $499.
I'm looking it up just to confirm that if we can.
That sounds about right. Yeah, I mean, I was on board with it. Okay.
Yeah, $449 for the Galaxy Camera 2.
Gosh, yeah, I was on board with it until you went $1,000. I'm like, well,
yeah.
I'm out. I'm not going to spend.
Yeah,
if I'm going to spend $1,000, I'm going to get like a camera.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That looks like the deal breaker from here.
That's
yeah, they could have got that around like $500. That wouldn't be terrible, but you're talking $1,000. Like my camera back there that I think you can see the Canon Rebel T3i. I got that with 2 lenses for about $800. So we're talking $1,000 for something that is probably a relatively decent It's definitely probably going to be better than a lot of the cameras on most of the smartphones right now. But when we just haven't, I haven't been that impressed with these cameras that are running Android or trying to be a camera and a smartphone kind of too like that. From what I've used so far, and I've used a couple of these types of devices, I have not been super impressed. But if this thing does take really good-looking photos, then more power to it. But I'm just a bit lenient as to just how good the photos and the videos are going to look on this thing.
Yeah, I can't see anything making it be like just like the go-to device for all that kind of stuff. It kind of is with that Kodak thing that we just went about. Like pricing will just kill you on this thing. Like it may even be decent, but you price yourself out of it. Who's going to get this thing?
Yeah. Well.
All right. So something interesting though, while we're talking about cameras and all that, Chuck, the HTC Re, I think is what we're calling it. We're not calling it the RE, right? The Re.
I think it's the Re, yeah.
Okay. Some good information on that. I'm not even sure if this was part of CES, but it was big news this week. What's brewing with the HTC Re?
Yeah, I don't know whether it's CES or not, but HTC has basically said that they're coming out with a software update for the Re that's essentially going to allow you to live stream the Re to YouTube. Now, it's not going to live stream from the Re itself. You're still going to have either an Android phone or an Android tablet or iOS eventually at some point in time. although they haven't specified a date, so it'll be Android only at first. So whatever you're seeing actually on the HTC Re itself, you're going to be able to live stream it to YouTube through whatever the associated device you've got it tapped onto is, which is kind of cool. HTC has always kind of marketed the Re as kind of the on-the-go camera. Its kind of main competitor, obviously, is the GoPro, which I know Alvie loves. I like the Re's size. I like the little periscope size. I think it's kind of cool. But my understanding is you can do live streaming on the GoPro, but I think it's only the more expensive ones. I could be wrong on that. I'm not 100% sure. But it does seem really cool to be able to live stream stuff. This is kind of what the Re was kind of designed for in general anyway. It's designed to be kind of one of those set and forget cameras itself. So it's kind of cool to be able to set it and forget it and then go back and view it later. But being able to live stream those things to YouTube, I think that's going to open this up to a whole new market of people who are going to be using this for probably some pretty crazy stuff. So I'm kind of excited to see not only the update itself, but kind of what people do with the HTC Re itself.
Yeah, the concept of it is awesome. My question on this is going to be battery life with it, because I know on my phone or tablet or computer, if I start live streaming video to YouTube or anywhere like that, like it'll just kill some battery. So interested to see what the HTC Re does, especially since it'll be linking to a smartphone too.
Yeah.
Interested to see what it does to battery life. 15 minutes may be all you can handle it with it, but
that's true.
That may be a good thing. I don't know that we need 3.5-hour live streams with people
that's true.
in San Francisco.
And I also don't know what the link between the Re and the phone is itself. I don't know if it's Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. I mean, Bluetooth is fairly limited in bandwidth anyway, so you're not going to get a very high stream. So I'm kind of hoping the link is actually Wi-Fi, so that you can actually get a decent stream from it. I don't think Bluetooth you'd really get a very great stream.
Now, on the GoPro, which is what I've got, it's linked through Wi-Fi. It acts like a Wi-Fi hotspot. You have to connect through it that way, through the app. But yeah, I don't know how the HTC Re handles it. Be interested to see what people do with it. I'm interested if anybody does anything interesting with it. One of my students is going to Japan in February, so it'd be kind of cool for him to take this because you can kind of clip it to your backpack and just roll with it. Do a couple live streams throughout the day. Be kind of neat with it. Did I lose everybody? Are we still here?
No, we're still here.
Okay. Yeah. Everybody kind of stumbled on me. Sorry, my computer's acting. Speaking of doing a live stream, my computer was acting up. So Joe, let's continue talking about overpriced items. The Sony Walkman is back. Is this a good thing or not?
Well, if you like spending $1,200 on a music player, then you are in luck with this thing. So Sony debuted the Walkman X2 at CES this year. And, if you're a big audio buff, there's some actually kind of cool technology in here. It supports DSD, WAV, AIFF, FLAC, Apple Lossless, and a bunch of different audio files on here. Bluetooth connection and NFC for one-touch connection to speakers and headphones, and Bluetooth connection to wireless Bluetooth headphones and earbuds and all that good stuff. But you do have a microSD card slot, which is expandable up to 120. Or a microSD card slot to expand your storage, and you do have 128 gigabytes out of the box for storing all of your audio files and all your music. And I'll go ahead and just show off some pictures of the device. It looks kind of interesting for me. This is kind of a design, you either love it or you hate it. Personally, I am not the biggest fan of how it looks. It looks very chunky, very beefy. It looks quite a bit rather heavy too. The power button and the volume rockers and the play and pause and fast forward, all those buttons, those do look rather nice and looks like they would kind of fit nicely in your fingers when you're holding the phone, or the Walkman that is. But you go into kind of the specifications for the device, and it's actually sounds rather terrible, as we are looking at Android 4.2 Jelly Bean on here, which debuted, what was that, back in
2012, I think.
2012, yeah, the end of 2012. So 4.2 Jelly Bean, which I don't know why that they couldn't ship it with at least KitKat, but I mean, it definitely has the support for audio files we don't see all that often supported on our smartphones. If you're into that kind of design, it is there for you. But I mean, I just don't know why you'd want to plop down $1,200 for a music player. I mean, yes, you're going to get higher audio quality technically than what you're going to get on your average smartphone here. But I mean, $1,200 is an awfully high premium to pay for slightly better audio quality. So if that's your kind of thing, more power to you. But I think I'm gonna maybe save my dollars and put $1,200 towards maybe a few other things before a Sony Walkman X2.
This seems to be the theme of CES, like, a decent product, way overpriced. Yeah, and which is weird from Sony because they do so much of their stuff sleek and thin that it's kind of chunky. I agree, but especially that price, I have no idea who they're marketing to. Because
is this out on the market yet, or is it like a concept item? At CES, I think a lot of what's out there are proof of concept type.
I don't believe it is available for purchase just yet.
But I have to wonder if there's really a market for an over $1,000 standalone portable audio device when everybody's listening to audio on their phones and tablets. Who is it that needs a device like this, especially when you've got phones with the ability to play everything that this can play, and either expand storage, if not up to 128 gigabytes, pretty close to that, and with cloud storage as well. So I'm just not sure if there's a market for this kind of device.
No, there's not. I mean, there's not. There's no way there's a market for a $1,200 Walkman. I mean, there may be some people that buy it, but you can't call that a market at all. Maybe people in Michigan do, but I don't know. Okay, sorry. Last joke.
But not New Zealand.
No, New Zealand's got it going on. They're like everything is perfect and fine tuned there. Chuck, let's talk a little bit. Hold on, I got lost. Firefox is on a Panasonic TV. Tell me about that. What's brewing with that?
Yeah, so it kind of seems to be the year that all the TV manufacturers are kind of laying their claims to what their smart TVs are going to be. Now, my feelings about smart TVs aside, Sony is embracing Android TV, which I honestly think is the best move any of the manufacturers is making. Samsung has just come out and basically said that Tizen, however you pronounce it, is going to be on all their TVs going forward. Great move, Samsung. And then now Panasonic has come and basically said that, well, we're going with Firefox OS. The Panasonic TV, I haven't owned one in quite some time, but my understanding is basically the UI and interface on any Panasonic TV was awful. So this was a very good choice for them. Basically everyone wants a smart TV these days, which if anyone's listening to this, don't waste your money on a smart TV. Go buy a normal TV and buy a Roku or an Android TV or something. Although I guess you could buy a Sony, which has Android TV built into it. Okay, I guess I could recommend those. But for those who, I guess, want a smart TV for whatever reason, Firefox OS is interesting. There's not a ton of apps out for it third-party wise, but it looks like it has the basics that's going to come with it. It's going to have your Netflix, YouTube, Amazon Prime, Vudu, Hulu Plus, and probably some other associated apps. But I think the problem here, even though I think it's a great move, because it certainly helps improve the UI of the TV itself, it's going to have the same problem that Samsung's current smart TVs have, in the fact that there just aren't any apps for the TV. So you spend all this extra money to buy a smart TV, and then to really get a smart TV, you go out and have to buy a Roku or an Amazon TV, Fire Stick TV, or whatever their things are called, or a Chromecast or something like that. So I think it's a step in the right direction because their UI on the TV looks better, but my opinion is all smart TVs are pretty much not really that smart. But it looks good now, at least.
Yeah, and also too, having the inclusion of the Firefox browser, which is a pretty decent browser built right into the TV, is not a bad thing to have in there at all either.
Yeah.
I've used a few different smart TVs. I've never been impressed with the smart TV, especially you can connect a Chromecast. We've talked about this on the show before. Roku stick, Chromecast, and get the same functions, but it's on your phone. It moves a lot quicker. Smart TVs always seem to be like just clunky and not very friendly, user friendly.
Yeah, like even though the app selection for it isn't that great, the only really smart TV that has kind of impressed me a little bit has been LG's webOS TVs, just because of how beautiful the interface does look. Granted, the application selection, it's still got those same exact issues. But you know, Firefox, this TV on the Panasonic TVs looks really nice. The webOS interface on LG's TVs do look really nice, but like Chuck was just saying, the lack of apps is still the biggest hindering factor for these smart TVs, because you know platforms like Roku, with the insane amount of content that are available for that platform, is just ridiculous and completely trumps anything like this, and especially those Roku TVs now too. It's just going to be really hard for Firefox to catch up with Roku, and even with Amazon's Fire TV platform now, who's already been building up at a surprising rate. To have these TVs build up, because you're talking about Roku or a Fire Stick, that's something that anyone can plug into any TV, but these operating systems are dependent to the TV. So, yeah, it's a pretty looking interface, but the content, lack of content rather, is definitely a big sore, or a big deal breaker for that package.
Yeah, agreed. Interesting to see, yeah, kind of what you were talking about, Chuck. Everybody's got their own version of it. It reminds me a lot of the old media format wars with either Blu-ray and HD DVD, or if you want to go Betamax, VCR kind of thing. Everybody's trying to push something out, and it'll be interesting to see who wins, whether it's Firefox, yeah, I'm sure that'll win, or webOS, I think, has a chance. Android TV, of course, does, and then there's always, you know, what's Apple going to do once they realize that there's a market for this? Put out the Apple TV or whatever. I mean, an actual TV with Apple TV on it. And then we've got a question in the Q&A, and I had no idea about this thing at all. Did you guys know about this Energis wireless technology? This is the first I've heard of it. When I saw the Q&A, I went and searched it. It works kind of like a wireless router for charging. It'll charge up to 15 feet away, multiple devices at 70% efficiency, which is pretty cool. I haven't seen a demo or anything at all. You guys know anything about this?
I don't, but I was just looking on Google. It looks like they were at CES this year.
Yeah, I missed it completely until I saw the Q&A, which is really neat looking.
Charge your devices up to 15 feet away, charge it wirelessly.
I haven't seen anything about it, but I'm just going to say that that kind of scares me. I don't really want to be walking through any kind of charging field.
Well, it's actually not bad. It looks like it's going to cost about $300. So if you want to walk through charging rays and all that, I mean, it's not a terrible barrier to get through. But I haven't heard anything about that at all. So thank you a lot, Sahil Tawari, for commenting about that and letting us know, because that is definitely some interesting tech there that slipped by us. Which, even not being at the show floor, not being in Vegas, having the whole internet to search these things, there is still a lot of stuff that gets by us, even with these hour-and-a-half shows. It's just absolutely ridiculous how big this convention is, and how many vendors are there with these different tech products, and just this weird technology like this thing. But it's actually stuff I was noticing at this year's CES. There's just a lot of cool gadgets that were there this year. I mean, last year there was just like kind of wearables and smartwatches that were really crappy, but this year there was a lot of just really cool, just fun gadgets. I was actually watching some coverage for it today. I guess at one of the booths there was a 20-foot tall kind of teleconferencing robot that was there. So instead of those normal like 5-foot tall ones that have like the television screen and the webcam of the person there, for video conferencing, there's like a 20-foot tall one there just going around this booth with like the camera pointing down. So and then that Toshiba, you know, the Android that was singing classical songs, just weird gadgets and stuff like that was at CES. It was a very exciting convention. Like I said, even though none of us were able to go this year, there was a lot of just, you know, cool stuff announced, like different phones and not so many tablets, different smartwatches and stuff, but just a lot of funky things that people are just kind of throwing together, putting a processor in and calling this a gadget. But you know, just kind of fun, exciting stuff that really was missing from last year's the 2014 CES.
Yeah. It was a really good CES and a really good show. Yeah, I know we went 90 minutes, which is a little longer than most of our shows, but we went through a lot of stuff, and we'll help Those that are watching behind, we'll try to add some timestamps. And for the podcast listeners, we'll try to link to all that stuff for you guys, too. A few things to talk about here before we do our host plugs and things at the end. We are if I could talk, we are approaching 3,000 subscribers on the Mobile Cup of Joe channel, which is a huge milestone for us, and we're really excited about that. We're going to do a big giveaway, and there's a big contest coming up, so just kind of like priming the pump. We're not going to too many details here, but did want to let you know we are going to do a big 3,000 subscriber giveaway with a big contest and stuff. I'm really excited about it. I've been on since we were about at 1,500, which was what 3-4 months ago, so it's really blown up.
Yep.
I blame the beard for your huge success. No, but be looking for that. We'll put out a video. We'll put out some information on that. And so, Joe, I know you've got a little bit to share on that. So go ahead and tell us what's brewing for you for the next week or so, and touch on that subscriber thing too.
Well, going on this week, I've got my Nexus 6 review, which will finally be uploaded to the channel. I'll start the upload after we get off of this show, but knowing the internet connection in lovely Michigan, it's going to probably take until 3 in the morning before it's actually uploaded to the channel, so be on the lookout for that in your sub boxes Saturday morning when you do get up. Start your day off with a Nexus 6 review. And then also, where is it? I have got the Nokia Lumia 830. I'm editing this review right now. That will be going up hopefully Sunday morning or Monday morning, sometime around there. So just some phone reviews going on there. And then, what do you think? Should we tell them what the prizes are going to be for the subscriber count, or should we hold them off until we reach 3,000?
I'd say hold off, because I got some things I want to run by you first. So
All right,
you can tease them. What's some of it? Yeah, we can tease them. We can tease them.
I won't show you, but I just have a box from Amazon here that's got a couple of the prizes in here. We've got multiple prizes this year, but
well, let's treat it like Christmas. Shake it. Yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah. Oh, you can see one of them. But got some really cool stuff here. I'm actually really excited for this one. This is probably going to be the biggest giveaway collaboration. Well, not really a collaboration because it's just us, but one of the biggest giveaways we've done on here so far. We've got some multiple prizes and multiple things to give away, so we should be hitting 3,000, because last time I checked we were at 2,850, so we're going to be there really soon, so I'm going to have to get a video loaded pretty quickly. So I would guess maybe by the end of this next week, if we're lucky, that giveaway that 3,000 subscriber mark should be hit. So be on the lookout for a giveaway sometime late next week or early next week, because that's probably going to be around the time when we're going to be able to start this and get you guys some free stuff for being awesome fans.
Excellent. All right, Fred, what's going on with you? What's brewing at Tech Dissected and for Back for the Dead?
Well, a lot more to write about it. There's still going to be some residue from some fallout from CES. A bunch of devices that I've got still here to review. I've got the Samsung Note 4, the Note Edge, and the Malaise M9, which Tony did the espresso shot on last week. So it'll be busy.
Yeah, awesome.
Keep busy,
awesome.
And really hoping to make it to CES 2016. I didn't go this year, in part because I promised to accompany my wife to a gardening and farming convention up in Saratoga, New York later this month, and the trade-off was that we're going to CES in Las Vegas next year. So hopefully we can be broadcasting or at least tweeting live from there.
Yeah. You usually get to go to all these shows, so
I can't be too jealous of the guys who are out there because I had two CE events here in New York, CE Week back in June and CES Unveiled in November, plus Interop, plus the rollout of the LG G3. So it was a pretty good time in the New York area this year. Last year.
Yeah, you've been to a few of those events. Ones and zeros, Chuck. What's going on for you this week, bud?
Oh, not too much. The usual, and finally finishing cleaning up from Christmas. I've got Christmas lights to take down and trees to take to the dump, and I had, I think, a pile of cardboard boxes in my garage. It was literally ceiling to floor, like the entire garage. So I've got a lot of cleanup to do this week from Christmas.
Fantastic. Well, Christmas. It's a month. Okay, almost a month since Christmas. Come on, man. You got to tighten up.
Well, there's Christmas, but then my son's birthday is the week after Christmas.
Okay.
So yeah, we've got Christmas and the week after Christmas, and then I don't even remember what it I think. Oh, and then then of course you have New Year's, and so you just kind of get everything boom, 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 and just sometimes it gets backed up a little bit.
Next thing you know, it's February, right?
Well, Chuck, I'm in Michigan, and we got our decorations down last week, so I don't know what your excuse is.
Wow. I think we just need to have a hash out war battle one hangout. I don't know if you call it a round table or a joust, whichever one, but
melee, I think, is the word.
Melee, right? Very good. All right, well, that does conclude our show for CES 15. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening on the podcast. We'll try to shoot as many of these links out so you guys can keep up with us there, and also. Just thanks for watching and listening in general, and for being fans and subscribers and all that. 3,000, we could not do it without you guys, and we thank you guys for that. So be looking for us next week. We will have this show at 9 p.m. Eastern, as we usually do, and Tony should be back. And look for special guests and giveaways next week as we approach our 3,000 subscriber mark. But for Chuck, Fred, Joe, and myself, thank you guys so much for watching. Leave us some comments. Hit the hashtag MCOJBrew, and we'll see you guys next week. Good night.